What is going on, everybody? Looks like you already got you. Y'all started without me. It looks like Jersey and Crit. Welcome. Thanks, Jersey. Appreciate that. Hello, Rick. Welcome. All right. Yeah. So, as you can clearly see by the title, we're doing, I think it's part 5 of this like kind of beginner lead guitar stuff. It's there was this next subject was kind of a big thing, and I thought I'm going to split it in half. And I thought I did a good job of splitting it in half. And I'm looking at the tabs and I'm thinking maybe not so much. So next week was going to be like the second, like part 2. It's more or less just going to be a continuation because everything kind of got lumped together. I'll explain when we get into it. But anyway, I hope that those of you who have been here for the previous installments of this have, hopefully you've gotten something out of it and you have indeed like learned the pentatonic scale and stuff so we can move forward. So what we've done in the past, we went over, the scale, the pattern. We did some exercises. Then we did some working on techniques like slides and hammer-ons and pull-offs and bending and that kind of stuff. And some kind of like basic kind of garden variety licks. But what we're going to do tonight is we're going to actually apply it. We're going to learn a couple of different little, like solos, like not like the whole solo, but like a phrase, a passage from a solo from some some Jimmy Page, Ace Frehley. That might have been it. I can't remember. But yeah, so what the idea is that we're gonna take what we've already learned, and you're gonna see how you have the tools now to be able to play this stuff. It's just a matter of doing it. So as usual, there is a link in the description where you can download the tabs so you can follow along. Well, that was interesting. Yeah, and while I'm waiting for y'all to do that, be super cool if you hit that thumbs up button. Never mind all the algorithm stuff. It just shows Guitar Control that I'm doing a good job and that you like the content that I'm doing. It helps me out on a personal level. All right, so something that I did on, well, I guess it's just one, it looks like. There's 3 things, and the third one's like quite a bit longer. But well, I'll just explain when we get there. I'm kind of jumping all over the place. It's been a day. So, cheers. All right. So when we were learning the scales and the different techniques and everything, we were doing everything in B minor, starting on the 7th fret. But we talked about how everything that we learned, you can play it at any key. You just move it, and here it's B because this is a B. So if we moved it down here, that's A. So you could play the same lick, and now it would be in A instead of B. Anyway, I hope that you have indeed like moved, tried playing them in different positions, because these are not in B. None of them are. But you could, like, if for whatever reason it was just really difficult for you to do it there, because it is a little bit, the further you go down this way and the neck bending becomes a little more difficult. Frets are further apart. There's lots of things that could could slow you down a little bit if this is new to you. So you could just transpose it, just play the way the tab's written, but just 2 frets higher. So instead of being in A, you could do it in B. It's the same exact pattern. It's the same sequence. And that's what's really cool about a lot of these licks and things we're going to be looking at, is that they're all just based around a little pattern that you just repeat across all the strings. We've already done some of that with a couple of the exercises that we worked on. All right. So the first one here it's the very first phrase from the solo from Stairway to Heaven. So this is in A minor. So we're going to be doing the A minor pentatonic scale. So we'll be starting at the 5th fret. So it's 5, 8, 5, 7, 5, 7, 5, 7, 5, 8, 5, 8. Again, just will be the same shape, or just down a whole step. All right, so we start off and we're going to do a full step bend. So we're going to bend 7th fret here on the G string. We're going to bend that up here. We're going to bend it up to an E, and then throw some vibrato on it. It's a half note. So this takes care of beats 1 and 2. Oh, Glenn, welcome. Let's see. So it'd be like 1, 2, and then you'd go on to the next part. So I do not remember if we talked about that with doing vibrato in a bend when we were working on those techniques or not. But anyway, I'm not going to spend a whole bunch of time on this in case I already have gone over it. I mean, it's very well possible. I can't remember what, an hour ago, let alone, last week or 2 weeks ago or something. This is something that generally takes some time to get to where it sounds good. So don't let this be like the hindrance for you. Like don't not play it because you're having a hard time doing the vibrato. So if you're doing vibrato and you're not bending the string, there's different ways you can do it. You can wiggle the string this way. You can do like you see like cello players do, where you just basically rock, you keep your finger held down, just rock it back and forth. But when you're in a bend, it's pretty hard to do that. And when you're in the bend, you can't do this either. So how I'm doing it is that when I'm holding I'm basically supporting the neck I'm lifting the guitar up by the string, and I'm letting the weight of the guitar do the work. And then I'm just kind of cradling it like on the back. I don't know how well you can see that, but I'm not grabbing the neck. I'm just kind of letting it sit there like that. And I grab the string, and when I go to bend it, as you bend, I'm exaggerating this movement. You kind of come around. You want to be more kind of on the side of the string. You want to be pushing the string up, not trying to drag it. Anyway, and then what I'm doing here is I'm just shaking the guitar by the string. The neck is just resting on this part of my hand. Anyway, it's like I said, it's something that takes some time. So, don't let that be the deal breaker for you on trying to play this. Okay, so we're going to do that for the first 2 beats. Then we're going to start on the 5th fret of the high E string. And what we're going to do is we're just going to descend the scale. So that means our next note is going to be here on the 8th fret on the B string. Now he's doing a pull off. So before we worry about trying to do that, let's just pick each note, and then you can go back and put do the pull offs or slides or whatever the case may be. So we're basically just descending the scale, but we're not starting at the very top. We're starting at the, the reason we're starting here is it's because it's an A, and we're in A. Anyway, we're going to start there, and then we're just going to descend down the scale. So 8, 5 on the B string, and then 7, 5 on the G string, to 7 on the D string. So. Then we're going to go right back up to the G string, and we're going to descend 7, 5, and then down to the D string. And then we're finally ending here on the 8th fret on the A string. Now you might be thinking, oh, well, that's outside of the pattern. It is, but it's not outside of the key. Remember we talked about passing tones. So like a passing tone is a note that's not in that pentatonic scale, but it still sounds good. You know, the blue note, different stuff like that. We already talked about, but yeah. So it's ending on that note there, which is actually, if you were playing a natural minor scale, that note is and it's the minor sixth, the flat sixth of the major scale. And yeah, sorry, I don't mean to go off on that stuff. So let's try that again. So we're going to do the bend. Then we're going to just move up and start descending the scale. So it's like 1, 2, 3 E and a 4 E. Oh my gosh, 3 E and a 4 E and a. It's all ran together. It's all 16th notes. As soon as I try to count that while I'm playing it, count it out loud, I go full brain dead. Okay, yeah. So now the pull off. So how he plays it is he picks that note on the high E string, but then when he comes here to the B string, it's a pull off. So you have to put both of your fingers down at the same time because you're going to pick and then pull. Your first finger already needs to be there on the 5th fret. So as you descend this, each time I go down to the string, I move both of my fingers. And that's something we talked about when we first did the scale, is like you want to get into the habit of leaving your trailing finger down. So that way you just get a good muscle memory of making the transition that way with moving both of your fingers together. So pick and then pick, pull, pick. Then back to the G string, pick, pull, back to the D string, pick, pull. And then that 8 with some vibrato. Okay, so that's a cool lick. You know, like I said, it's the first phrase on Stairway to Heaven, but there's more to it than it's just a cool lick. There's stuff inside of there that you can use. That you know that going you know that sounds good. You can just take that passage from it, or when you're doing something, some other. Whenever you learn something like this, you always want to try to take more out of it than it's just the lick. And so or phrase, you know, whatever the case may be, or even a whole solo for that matter. Pick it apart. Find the little parts that you like. That you usually gravitate towards the ones that you like the way it sounds, or the ones that are easier for you to play. You pick up on them quicker, and there's totally nothing wrong with that. That's kind of what makes everybody be a little bit different, is that what's easy for me might be hard for you, and what's easy for you might be hard for me. All right, so that's the Jimmy Page one. Does anybody have any questions about about that one, or about, you know, just guitar questions in general? Doesn't have to be about that necessarily. Okay, So we can just move right along then. So the next we're going to look at is like the little melody line from Layla by Clapton, like from Derek and the Dominoes. So this, is the so when I said at the very first of this that my intention was to kind of make these two separate things, and it kind of didn't work out that way. So what this is going to do is it's going to kind of introduce a concept that goes a little bit beyond playing, and like we said, if you play a note outside of that pattern, it's a passing tone. But there are other notes outside of the pattern that aren't passing tones. They're still notes that are part of the scale. So you may have heard before of the 5 positions of the pentatonic scale. So like we learned this one, which is pattern 1, and then you'd have another one that would start on the second note, and they just move around on the neck. I never really latched on to that, to playing that way with those. I use a different pattern that's more horizontal across the fretboard. If you're interested in that, I don't know if there's any live streams, but I know I've done lessons on the channel about those patterns. But anyway, rather than learning all the patterns, I mean, there's nothing wrong with doing that, but a way that you could kind of start out with it is that this pattern. So what you do is you learn what the next note is on the same string, below the root and above the second note on each string. And anyhow, we're gonna dive into that more next week. But this particular lick kind of does that. It shifts up in a position. So I'll just kind of explain it, as we go along. I mean, you could play this and never have to know any of that stuff, but I'm just trying to make it so everything we're playing can fit inside the scale pattern and the concept that we've been talking about. Okay, so this one we're going to be doing it here, starting on the 10th fret of the B string. So we're doing D minor pentatonic. So we're going to start on the 10th fret, and we're going to go 10, 13, but it's a hammer on. Then we're going to go to the high string, and we're going to do the same thing, but we're also going to pull off. So it's going to be 10, hammer to 13, pull back off. Then we follow that with 13 on the B string, back to 10 on the high string. So if we thought about that is like we'll kind of divide this up into 3 parts, basically. Well, no, it'll be 4 parts. Oh, from Brazil? Awesome. Thank you and welcome. Which song? The Layla? You're saying the slow version. I'm assuming that must be the... Yeah, cool, yeah. I've never learned that. I've always wanted to. It's like really, really neat, and I've just never gotten around to it. Okay, yeah. So if we think about this is like the first part. Whoops. Then we're going to go to the 13th fret, and now I'm going to switch. I'm not going to use my pinky. I'm going to use my 3rd finger because I'm going to bend. And remember we talked about that for me, once I get right around the area of the 12th fret, sometimes I'll start using my 3rd finger instead of my pinky just because of the frets being closer together. So we're going to bend that up a full step, and that is a quarter note. So this is like 1 E and, let's see, 1 E and 2 E and 3, 4. So. All right, so we do that bend on that's beat number 4. It's a quarter note, and then starting on uh, the next measure, we release the bend and we're just back to 13. And so what we're gonna do here is these are all quarter notes. We go 13, 12, 13 on the B string, back to 10. So what we've added in there, we've added in this note right there. We've added in this E. So it's a passing tone. It's not part of the pentatonic scale, but it's still in that key. There's another scale that we haven't talked about yet that we will get to. I don't want to like rush all of this stuff, but eventually we'll get to it. The Mixolydian mode, it kind of overlaps this pentatonic pattern, and there's some cool stuff that you can do with that. Anyway, so how I end up doing it is right. So that's the first two measures, and then starting on the next measure, it's the same thing as the first one. The only difference is that the very last note, instead of going 13 and bending, we're going to go up to 15. So we've got, and then that's on beat 4. And then just like we did on the second measure, it's the same idea, except we start on 15. We're going to go 15, 12, 13, and then back to 10 here. So this is the one, like I said, it's kind of weird because this first part of it, if we only did that much of it, it's easier to see, oh, okay, well that's all those notes are in that scale pattern. We've got that one extra one, that passing tone. It's pretty easy to digest. But then when we shift up here, without going over the other stuff that I was talking about, that we'll do next time, I don't want to spend a bunch of time trying to explain it when it's going to be a lot easier to explain it when you have like the paperwork for it and everything. But just don't worry about it for right now. It's a pretty cool lick, and it's a good practice tool. It's got a variety of timing. It's got picked notes, hammered notes, pulled off notes, bending, and it's a very distinct melody. When you're playing stuff like licks and everything, or like the cool ones are always the ones that you can sing, that you remember, that they have like a very memorable melody, and this one does. So when you're playing it, it's much easier to tell if you're doing it right or if you're doing it wrong. If you bend and you're not bending far enough, you are going to be able to tell. If you don't bend far enough, you're going to be able to tell. It's going to sound wrong. It's going to sound wrong to you, unless you're completely unfamiliar with this song, which I guess it depends on how old you are. Now here I could just use my third finger, and if I was going to go perform this tonight, that's exactly what I would do, just because I'm more confident that the hammer-ons and pull-offs will come off without a hitch because it's not my pinky. But when I'm just practicing, I'm always striving to make my pinky better. So I try to use it whenever I can. But bending with your pinky really sucks. I think it does. I mean, I'm not a fan of that whatsoever. Yeah. So you could again take ideas from this. So like right there, all I did is I started on, instead of starting on the B string, I'm starting on the third note. So I'm 10, hammer to 13, pull, back to 13 here, and then back up to 10. But instead of doing that melody, I could go or add in a passing tone, one that's they're using in this song, but I'm changing it up. I'm not saying like try to go, that's how you come up with licks is going to plagiarize somebody else's stuff. But I'm just saying you get the idea from it. That's what everybody does. One player's in, he plays something the other guy likes, he's influenced by it, then he does his own rendition of it, and then so on and so forth down the chain. The bending on both of those, where you're bending the high IE string up, if you're new to bending, this is one where you end up having problems, is that you'll bend up and then you grab the string above it with your finger. This is why when you do the bend, you want to roll onto the side. I don't know how well you're going to be able to see this, but if you can see that line going there through all my fingers, that's my G string. I'm not pushing it. It's actually kind of lifting it up. It's not allowing it to drag across the frets. But it's also, my finger isn't going over the top of it, which is going to cause it, to flip when I come off. So that's kind of the big secret there. So that's why this is another great thing for that. You got all these different techniques and this melody. So just practice them. Yeah, see, even trying to bend it throws my mind off. Can't remember what I was going to do. Okay, so does anybody have any questions about that one? Oh yeah, okay, that's right. Something too that I don't know if I talked about this or not before, but if you've been working with the stuff and you've got the scale pattern down, and you can play it ascending and descending, you can throw in some hammer-ons and different things like that, and you don't even have to have moved it out of that key. If you just pull up you just go on YouTube, type in guitar backing track in B minor, and about 6 million things will come up. Put one on and play over it. You at first everybody feels like you're like, well, I don't know what to play. Well, just play any of the stuff that we've gone over. Play that lick from Stairway to Heaven. Depending upon what it sounds like, it might completely sound different, because of what you're playing, the chords you're playing and over, and things like that is going to make it sound different. But anyway, just by doing that and getting comfortable, pretty soon you start hearing, oh, I like this area of the scale. You start kind of finding little landmarks that will influence which direction you go with when you're like learning these new licks. Like what, like I said, usually we're attracted to the ones that we really like the sound of or are easy for us to play. Just whatever the case may be, just start there and work your way around with it. It does a lot of good for your playing, and it's pretty fun. Once you get doing it where you can actually hear that what you're playing sounds musical, it's pretty fun. It's a pretty rewarding thing. Exactly, Glenn. Exactly. Yeah, that's a great. See, and like in your case, you could if you're doing it, you're popping the strings. You can add a lot of like cool kind of textures to it. All right, so this next one here is it's not the entire solo, but it's like a couple of different parts from it. Mostly because this is this is a really cool it's solo, a pretty iconic one. I think, considering the source. Uh, but this was like a big deal to me, like when I was a kid, to be able to play this. And I used to have this like sort of right variation of it that I played. Anyway, this learning this solo, it's Love Gun by Kiss. It's the solo for not the entire. It's 90% of the solo. Uh, but there's so many cool things in here and so many ideas and licks that are just like basic kind of, things like that, that everybody does. So it's just really great all around for learning that. So again, this has some notes that aren't passing tones that are just outside of the pattern, but we'll go over that next time. When I put all this stuff together, I'm not. It's been a day. All right, so we're going to start here on the 12th fret of the low E string. And it's kind of weird is that this comes in on the and of 4. So it's like 1, 2, 3, 4. And then it goes into the next part, which is made up of a bunch of triplets. So we start here, we're using our third finger down to up to 10 on the A string, back to 12, then back to 10, and then 12 on the A string. So then we're going to do 10, 12 again and slide to 14. Or, yeah. Now we're going to go to the 12th fret on the D string, back to 14 on the D string, or excuse me, the A string. So have you noticed the pattern so far? We did an exercise that was a very similar type thing to this, where we went, or actually it was here. So it's kind of a similar idea. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6 notes, well, 7 if you count this one. Actually, I guess if instead of playing this note first, if we start on here, it kind of, because this is where the triplets start, it kind of groups it together better. We're just going to keep that same pattern going up the fretboard. So this is all in E minor, so it'd be like the E minor pentatonic scale, but we're going here. This note right there is here. So that's what I was saying earlier. This will make a lot more sense when we do the next part of it. But you can play, this is an E, this is an E, this is an E, this is an E. There's like a dozen different places you can play the notes. And the way I'm going to show you, it's pretty easy. It makes it pretty easy to navigate around without having to have the entire fretboard memorized and stuff. Yeah, I'm like really kind of about in the middle on the strings. Sometimes the higher, especially with a clean tone, it's just like eardrum piercing, I think. But in a lot of stuff with chords, I like playing high, but and when I mean high on the fretboard. I like those lower strings up higher on the fretboard, like that. They have like a kind of a cool sound. Okay, back to the lick. Then we're going to slide again. So it's like if you take this pattern it's the same thing. We've started over again. That's that D again. So we're going to slide, we're going to go 14, 12, 14, and slide to 16. Yeah, then 14, 16 again. Okay, now here we're going to go to the 15th fret on the B string, which is part of that pattern, but we're not playing it with our pinky. Because we could have done this same thing if we went now I'm just trying to remember it or make it up as I go along, but you can play the same thing just in a different area, and there's lots of different reasons for doing that. A lot of reasons why I like to play kind of more horizontally and less like in a box is I think it's easier to come up with a melody, to be able, like, if you're if you're sliding around or whatever, if you're not confined to just knowing where two notes are on each string, it's it just makes it a lot. You can do lots and lots of cool stuff. But like I said, you don't have to memorize all those patterns to be able to do it. We'll talk more about that next time. All right, Crit, thank you. Appreciate it. Okay. So now, since that's 14 and 16 with my first and third finger, now I'm going to use my second finger to go to 15 on the B string and then back to the 16 on the G string. Then we go 17. So I reach up with my third finger, and then it's going to come back to 15, and I change fingers back to my first finger, because then we're going to go to 15 on the first string, and that's why. So now we're going to, the rest of this, we're going to have to move it up on one string. Okay, so that's 17 and 15. Now we're going to move up a whole step, so we're 19 and 17. Now we're going to move up, so we're 19 and 22. And then bend that 22 up to an E. Ace Frehley always played Les Paul's 22 frets, and so there's a lot of his stuff where he's like right up there at the top. Anyway, I think that's like a really cool, it's a long sequence, but there's lots of neat stuff in there that you can use, but you may not play, you might just take a little chunk of it and put it into your improvisation, just maybe something like that. You always want to try to find just some little thing that you can take from it. All right, so the whole thing. All right, so that is the first half of that one. Now, if you're familiar with the song, he sits there and he does a bunch of bends there, and then he does plays a couple other little notes, and then it goes into this next lick sequence that we're going to look at. Because this one's a really versatile one. It's used in tons and tons of different things, and there's just by learning this one little thing, you can do a lot of variations to it. that, I mean, once you know how to do it, you'll always be able to kind of hear that it's there, but it does sound different. So what we're gonna do, this is like the Chuck Berry thing that maybe we went something like that. I don't remember, but we're in E minor pentatonics. So this first pattern, so we're going to bend the note on the 14th fret of the G string. We're going to bend that up a full step, and then follow that with 12 on the B string, and then 12 on the high E string. So when you bend this up a full step, you're bending it up to, in this case, a B. You're bending it. So now that's like a unison bend, and I know we did those when we went over bending. We did the unison bend. So it's like we're going, but it's so that right there. Like I said, there's lots of different things that use that. So like on Johnny Be Good, it's like he's just playing, he's bending and then playing the note on the B string. So if it was here, it'd be, but in Johnny Be Good, I think it's an A. Yeah, I think it's an A. I can't remember. It's been a long time. So anyway, if you take that particular thing and just play around with it, you could do bend and then hit both of these together. Like, you had to have heard that in lots of different, lots and lots of different variations you can do with it. And again, it's a good exercise for the bending to help strengthen up your fingers, to be able to do it repetitively. So what he's doing, the first part of it, he does this like triplet. So it's like, 1, 2, 3, triple it, triple it, triple it. And then he does this little melody line. So he's going to go right up to the top of the scale. So the 15th fret. So he plays that 15 and then down to 12 on the high E string. Then he goes to 14, back to 12. So back to and then to 15 on the B string, back to 12 on the high E string, and then that whole thing repeats. So now you could play that with, and again, here we've got that passing tone, and it's that Mixolydian note that I was talking about earlier. You want to try to just do, mess around with it, do as different variations on that as you can. So you could that's kind of connecting two of the ideas together. Okay, so he repeats that a couple of times. Oh yeah, so what you could do with it here, I didn't do anything as pull-offs or hammer-ons or anything like that. So you could experiment around with that and see what you think. Like what you think of how it sounds like in comparison to picking every note. So you can kind of put your own spin on it, or it's just another way to practice the technique without just playing an exercise or something. So there, I'm pick, pull, pick, pull, pick, pick. Versus, I kind of like that. I kind of like it with the pull-offs in there myself. I just think it just has a nice smoother sound that I've always kind of liked. So anyhow, they do that a few times, and then they end that phrase by. So it's like triple lit, triple lit, triple lit, 1 yellow, 2 yellow, 3 yellow, 4. I guess there's not vibrato on there. And then this very last one here it's a variation on that one that we've worked on before, that that fast descending thing. But it's going to be here in E minor. But it starts off, it doesn't start at the top note like it started descending it your way down. You start actually here. So it's kind of like on the one we were looking at earlier, the same idea. They wanted to get on that note because that's where the melody is. That's where the melody that he's going for was. So we're going to play 12, and then we're going to descend the scale, but in 3. So 1, 2, 3, and now we're going to repeat notes 2 and 3 and add another one. So notes 2 and 3 become 1 and 2. So you get, and just keep that sequence. Now we're going to start on 12 on the B string. Okay, passing tone. That's the other one from that we did earlier on the 14th fret, the F sharp. And then ending there on the 14th fret of the D string. Now, normally I play that with my 3rd finger, but since I had to move down a position, that's just easier for me to do it that way. Oh my gosh. Now, that one there too, you could pick and then you could do pull-offs. I kind of like that one better. All picked, but again, it's all just a matter of opinion. Unless you're like really trying to nail exactly what somebody else is doing or whatever. That's generally not what I'm trying to do. Sometimes I'll do that. Most of the time, it's just I try to kind of catch the spirit, see what I can learn from it or whatever. Learn some cool licks. All right, so yeah, that is it for those examples. So I hope that any of this has been helpful or whatever. I feel really off tonight. I don't feel like I've been this rough day. But yeah, does anybody have any questions about any of that? And if you're just tuning in, we are at the end, but there'll be a rerun, and there's a link in the description where you can get the tabs. All right. Well, thanks everybody for coming out. I really appreciate it. I appreciate you guys are here every week. Means a lot to me. Anyway, if you like the Beer Hounds, what is up? Yeah, I'm having an off night. But anyway, thanks everybody. Thanks for putting up with me. Really appreciate it. And if you like what I'm doing, do me a solid, hit that thumbs up button. It really does help with them, for me to continue to do this. Yeah, Beer, it'll be, you can hear in a minute, like the rerun will be available, and there's a link where you can get the tabs. And it's pretty consistently always on Wednesdays at I guess it's 8 p.m. Eastern. Thank you, Jersey. Appreciate it. All right. Thanks, everybody. I really appreciate you being here, and I will catch y'all next week. Stay safe, everybody. Thanks, Beer. Appreciate that. Really do. Good night, everybody.